Hey everyone, Mr. DVB here. So today is July the 4th, which is of course America's birthday, but it is also the release date of Stranger Things Season 3. So in anticipation for Stranger Things Season 3, which is out today, I'll be reviewing Seasons 1 and 2 of Stranger Things. So Stranger Things was originally released back in August of 2016. It is a Netflix original series directed by the Duffer Brothers, and it is one of my favorite TV shows out there right now. I'm not a huge TV show person, to be completely honest. I don't really watch that much TV. I'm more of a movie person, as you guys know. But when it comes to TV shows, I do like watching shows like Game of Thrones. I'm currently binging Breaking Bad for the very first time, and it's a freaking awesome show so far. And like I mentioned, I really enjoy Stranger Things. I think the main reason I enjoy Stranger Things is because it's set in the 80s, and some of my favorite stuff comes from the 80s, whether it's movies, songs, anything like that. I'm definitely a person who loves the 80s, and this show is, all about the 80s, so it's right up my alley. And then on top of that, I just think it's a really creative show. Now, there are definitely a lot of similarities to some 80s movies and stuff. It borrows a lot from some really iconic films, especially like E.T. and, some other movies, but it is just a really enjoyable show. So today I'm going to be reviewing Season 1 of Stranger Things, and later today I'll have my review up for Season 2. So Stranger Things Season 1 is set in 1983 in a small town known as Hawkins, Indiana, where everyone knows pretty much everyone. And recently, a young boy by the name of Will Byers has suddenly and mysteriously disappeared. His mother, played by Winona Ryder, is very worried and works together with Police Chief Jim Hopper, while in the meantime, Will's group of friends come across a young girl named Eleven who has psychic abilities and may be the key to finding their friend. So the show really is just a giant love letter to a bunch of our favorite 80s movies, taking a bunch of ideas, and even straight up sequences for that matter sometimes, and kind of meshing them together into this one big 80 nostalgia series. And for me, it works most of the time, but there are times where it can feel like they're really just ripping off and remaking sequences from some of our favorite films. For example, there's a bike/car chase near the end of Season 1, which is taken straight from E.T. Now, obviously, they're doing this as a callback, but it still feels a little bit jarring having these sequences that are just clearly supposed to be a representation of those films. Now, it is handled very well. It's not like this is a crappy remake of those sequences. They're still handled very well because these are competent directors. They're shot really well, so everything works here. It just does feel like it's kind of ripping off of those sequences sometimes. But despite that, what I think really works well about this show is the characters and the story. One of the things I really like about this is the themes and how this show isn't necessarily a kid's show. It does focus a lot on teenagers. It is a really dark show at times. Dealing with parents who have lost kids in the past and stuff like that. It is a dark show. There are dark themes. It's kind of a mystery, horror, suspense show at moments when you have the Upside Down, which is a really cool element that I'll get into later. But overall, the show definitely has some really great themes. So it kind of has something for everyone in a way. If you're somebody who likes 80s, it's got a ton of 80s stuff. If you're somebody who likes kind of mystery or thriller aspects, it's there. The show has a lot of that kind of stuff, and it works really well. Now, I'm going to talk about the characters for a second. I like the majority of the characters in this show, but I'm honestly not the biggest fan of the kids. Now, there are some kids in this group that I absolutely love. I think Dustin is hilarious. He is definitely my favorite kid character in this show. I just really like his personality. His humor is always on point. He always makes me laugh. He's definitely the best kid in the show for me. But his characters like Mike, who I just honestly find kind of bland and uninteresting in every single season of the show, including Season 2, not necessarily Season 3 because I haven't watched yet. I've just found Mike to be kind of boring, and it's not anything to do with Finn Wolfhard. He's a great actor. In It, he was hilarious. That's another movie that's, about the 80s and that kind of stuff, and his character in that film was hilarious. He can clearly play really fun and interesting characters. I just feel like the writing for his character in this show is, I don't know, not the best, honestly. He's kind of just this uninteresting kid. I get that he is kind of, dealing with the fact that his friend is lost and supposedly dead, but he just feels kind of boring to me. And I also am not the biggest fan of Eleven. I know that's probably where I'm going to get a lot of people off guard. I think she's a way better character in Season 2. It's just in Season 1, at first she kind of just feels like she's just there because they needed her for some plot points. It's definitely in Season 2 where her character starts to develop more, because in Season 1 she's just like this really powerful girl who doesn't really have much of a character to her. She barely talks, so I just found her kind of uninteresting. They do kind of explain how she got her abilities at points, and it's those parts of her character that I found more interesting than just her kind of walking around and picking up things with her abilities. So yeah, that's just really what I think of her character. But the rest of the characters I really enjoy. I think my personal favorite has to be Hopper. I think that he definitely has a lot of really interesting moments. He's funny, but he also can be really really serious. And I just think that David Harbour's acting is fantastic. He definitely plays the character very very well. And like I said, when it comes to like his backstory and kind of his development, there's that whole storyline with his daughter who had cancer, which just makes you feel for his character, above really any of the other characters. And my God, Winona Ryder is fantastic in this series, playing this really, anxious mom who wants to find her lost child. She is great in this show. She goes full on crazy in sequences where she's like, turning on a bunch of lights and that kind of stuff, setting up the Christmas lights, trying to contact her son. She is absolutely fantastic in this franchise, or series, I guess, and she's probably one of the better parts of season 1, in my opinion. Her performance is just fantastic. So yeah, I like the kids for the most part, but I think I prefer the adults sometimes in this series just because they have more interesting storylines. So this is after I recorded everything. I completely forgot to mention Nancy and Jonathan's character in this series. So these two are a big part of this season. Nancy is obviously like the really big smart girl at school. She's dating Steve Harrington, who is the big jock kind of guy at the school. They get along very, very well, but some things happen with their relationship over time. She doesn't necessarily want to dive into things, and her friend Barbara really isn't into her being with this guy. She thinks that it's just not really good for her personality and everything, and Barbara ends up getting taken by the same creature that took Will, and eventually Nancy ends up finding her way to Jonathan, and they kind of work together to try to find both characters, Barbara and Will. So that was a side story I completely forgot to mention. It's actually one of the better ones in this series as well, so I don't know why that escaped my mind, I just forgot to mention it. They're both really great characters though, and I really liked them working together in this season. It's definitely in season 2 that I get even more of an arc, and same thing goes with Steve. In season 1, Steve's kind of just a total dick. Season 2, he definitely redeemed himself and becomes a great character, so more on him next season. Now, going back to the Upside Down for a second, this is one of the cooler elements of the show in my opinion. It's one of the smartest ideas that the creators came up with. It's basically where we live, everything around us, Earth, except just nighttime and kind of creepy, and it's just this kind of a different reality almost. It's really creepy and cool, and you have these really interesting creatures that come from the Upside Down. That's one of the aspects of the show that I really love, is all the different creatures that are from this area. I really like, in Season 2 when they dive more into that. Hopefully Season 3 dives even more into the Upside Down. I'm sure they will. But yeah, Season 1 did a really good job of making this place really creepy and eerie. It's set up very, very well. Like I said, this show doesn't just dive right into showing you the Upside Down. It takes some time. It kind of, sets it up as like this big mystery where you don't exactly know what happened to Will Byers. And then once you find out that he was kind of kidnapped by this creature called a Demogorgon, it gets really, really cool from there on out, and I thought that was a really interesting idea. The Upside Down looks awesome, and it's just a really smart idea. The Demogorgon is a really cool creature, by the way. I think the design is really nice, but I think that one of the problems with the first season, especially when compared to the second season, and definitely when compared to the third season, is that it has a much lower budget. The show had just started back then, so they weren't going to throw a ton of money into it because they didn't know how popular it was going to be. Obviously now it's huge. It's probably Netflix's biggest show, so they're able to just throw tons of money at it. But in Season 1, there are definitely times where the effects aren't exactly the best. There's one moment when Mike tries jumping off of a cliff into the water, and the green screen that they had behind him just looks really bad. And for a matter of fact, the whole final episode has some pretty bad CGI in it when it comes to the Demogorgon. This entire season, the Demogorgon is kind of in the background, hinted at, sort of like the Shark in Jaws, where you never really see it until the end of the movie. And when it comes to the final episode, the Demogorgon's on full display, and the effects certainly aren't the best, especially in the school scene where there's all these flashing lights on, and it's just killing a bunch of people. I've kind of always imagined the reason why they had those flashing lights were to kind of blind us from the fact that the effects weren't really that good on the Demogorgon, because those lights are just crazy in this episode. It's like an epilepsy fest. I'm not somebody who has ever had a seizure in their life or anything, so the flashing lights don't annoy me from a standpoint of, oh, it's going to make me have a seizure. It just looks annoying, and you can tell that they're most likely doing it because the effects aren't the best for the Demogorgon. At least that's what I've assumed. I don't know that for sure, so I'm not gonna write it down and say that's the reason that's like that. I've just kind of always assumed that's why. But besides that small issue, I think that this season is really good overall. The final thing I want to talk about before I get onto my final rating is the antagonist. So there's this one doctor character in this season known as Papa, who is kind of a character that Eleven feels like is her father in some ways, and his character to me is decent. I think that he is kind of intimidating. He does come across as kind of a creepy character, but I feel like the payoff isn't really there, honestly. He sort of just gets killed. He's there for a few episodes of this season. You're kind of expecting them to do something big with his character, and he just gets killed off. And I understand they had to kill him off because if he wasn't, these kids are going to, like, their whole lives are going to be in danger. They're going to get killed by him. But it just felt like there's really, like, they just killed him off. Like, he didn't really do much in this season. He should have done a little bit more, in my opinion. But besides that, I think overall, Stranger Things Season 1 is a really great show. There's a lot of different themes for people to enjoy. You have the humor with the kids. You have the more emotional moments when it comes to the families and how they're affected by the disappearance of Will, especially when it comes to Winona Ryder. Like I said, she's fantastic in this. I also think her son, her other son, Jonathan, did really great in this season. I don't know the actor's name, but he did a really good job, kind of dealing with his brother's disappearance and that kind of stuff. So all the acting is great here. There's some characters I find a little bit uninteresting personally, like Mike. But overall, really good show. Like I said, the mystery elements, it's a really creepy show, and it's just fun overall. So yeah, I'm going to give Stranger Things Season 1 an 8.5. So that wraps up my review for Stranger Things Season 1. I'll see you guys next time. Probably later today I'll be reviewing Stranger Things Season 2, and then sometime later this week I'll be reviewing Stranger Things Season 3. Can't wait to watch that season and give you guys my thoughts on it. So in the meantime, happy 4th of July! I'm Canadian, but still, enjoy yourselves.